I'll give you the Lamborghini if you can get it to run. Gregory Blackwood's laughter echoed across the private garage as he pointed to a completely wrecked black Lamborghini lying in the corner like a monument to failure. Darius Freeman, 68, had come there just to drop off his old van for a minor repair. But when his van sputtered and died right in front of the Lamborghini, the billionaire didn't miss the opportunity to turn the moment into his own personal entertainment. "Look, everyone," Blackwood shouted to his staff and the social media cameras already rolling. "This gentleman here thinks he knows cars, doesn't he?" Sarcasm dripped from every word as he watched Darius slowly step out of his van, fumbling with the keys, knowing all eyes were on him. The garage lights reflected off the Lamborghini's twisted frame, highlighting its shattered windshield, bent chassis, and burned-out engine. A car that once was a symbol of luxury and speed, now a testament to reckless arrogance. Darius adjusted his worn jacket and wiped his grease-stained hands on an already dirtied rag. He had been a mechanic all his life, fixing cars no one else dared to touch. But nothing in his 50 years of experience had prepared him for this kind of spectacle. A billionaire mocking him, an audience recording every second for social media, and a Lamborghini that seemed more like a puzzle from another dimension. Blackwood circled the car like a predator, savoring every moment of humiliation. "Honestly, I don't know why we even bother with people like him," he jeered to his employees, "thinking a simple repair van makes you qualified to resurrect a legend. This Lamborghini is dead, gone, finished." His smirk widened as Darius walked slowly toward the car, eyes fixed on the mangled hood. Darius's hands itched to touch the machine, to understand its problems, to breathe life into it. But he knew he had to be strategic. One wrong move, and Blackwood would make sure the world saw it. Social media notifications were already lighting up Blackwood's phone. Lambo Challenge trending, Billionaire vs mechanic, and countless viewers placing bets on whether the old man could even turn the key. Blackwood's laugh cut through the garage again. "Go ahead, old man. Show us how it's done. Or just prove that even experience can't save you from failure." A group of employees and a few high-profile guests gathered around, some smirking, others whispering wagers. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Darius took a deep breath and approached the Lamborghini. The car's interior smelled of burnt wires and oil. Its engine was a hollowed-out shell of what it once had been, wires dangling like broken veins and parts strewn across the floor. To anyone else, it would have been hopeless. But to Darius, it was a challenge, a puzzle, and puzzles were his specialty. He knelt beside the engine, careful not to touch the wrong wire. Blackwood leaned closer, filming the moment with his phone, narrating for his followers. "Watch closely, everyone. This is what overconfidence looks like. He has no idea what he's doing. I give him 5 minutes before he gives up, humiliated in front of the world." Darius's fingers brushed over the burnt metal, tracing the path of a broken fuel line. Memories flooded back. Late nights working at the old garage, repairing engines no one else wanted to touch, building a reputation not for wealth, but for skill. And now, in the middle of Blackwood's mocking spectacle, all that experience mattered more than ever. He ignored the sneers, ignored the laughter, and focused on the Lamborghini. Every part had a story: twisted rods from the accident, scorched pistons, and an electronic system fried beyond belief. But his eyes, sharp as a hawk, caught something no one else noticed: a tiny, cracked relay hidden beneath the dashboard, a small flaw that could hold the key to reviving the engine. Blackwood's voice cut through his thoughts again. "Oh, he's touching the wires now. This should be interesting. Maybe he'll electrocute himself. Who knows?" The crowd chuckled nervously, a mixture of amusement and tension hanging in the air. Darius straightened, giving a small nod to himself. This wasn't just about fixing a car anymore. It was about pride, skill, and dignity. He worked methodically, undoing the layers of damage, carefully reconnecting the severed components. Sparks flew briefly, and smoke curled from the engine. Causing a gasp from the crowd, Blackwood's eyes widened in mock horror, but Darius remained calm. Minutes felt like hours. Every move was scrutinized, every adjustment a gamble. The cameras rolled, social media notifications exploded, and Blackwood continued his commentary, oblivious to the fact that Darius's calm, calculated approach was slowly turning the tide. Finally, Darius wiped his brow and stepped back. The Lamborghini groaned as he turned the key, but nothing happened. Blackwood laughed louder than ever. "See? I told you. Pathetic. Maybe you should stick to your little van, old man. Some things are just beyond you." But Darius's eyes didn't waver. He could feel it. The small relay he'd noticed, the subtle misalignment, the hidden damage that no one else had seen. He wasn't done. Not yet. And as Blackwood's laughter echoed once more through the garage, Darius leaned in closer, whispering to himself, "Let's show them what skill really looks like." At that moment, the stage was set. The billionaire's arrogance, the crowd's anticipation, and the impossible Lamborghini combined to create a moment that no one would forget. The challenge had begun, and Darius Freeman was ready to fight, not with wealth or fame, but with the power of his hands, his mind, and his unbreakable spirit. Darius Freeman knelt beside the Lamborghini, his hands steady despite the tension that hummed through the garage. Every eye in the room was on him, every camera lens capturing his every move. Blackwood's laughter still lingered, like a sharp echo reminding Darius of the stakes. "Come on, old man," Blackwood sneered. "Let's see if you can even turn it over. Maybe we should start a pool. How long before he burns himself out?" Darius ignored him. Experience had taught him that the doubters always spoke first and saw last. His eyes scanned the car's twisted frame, mapping out the chaos beneath the hood. Wires hung like vines, hoses were torn, and the engine block looked like it had been through a storm of fire and metal. To anyone else, it was a hopeless wreck. To Darius, it was a puzzle waiting to be solved. He started with the basics, checking the fuel lines and connections. The relay he had noticed earlier seemed more critical now than ever. As he carefully reconnected it, a small spark flew, just enough to make the gathered crowd gasp. Blackwood grinned, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Oh, look at that! He almost touched the live wire. Someone get the fire extinguisher." Some employees chuckled, some whispered bets, and the social media feeds went wild with comments. "This is going to be epic. He's doomed." Can he really do it? Minutes turned into an hour as Darius methodically worked through the Lamborghini's mess. He replaced broken fuses, rerouted damaged wires, and carefully tested each connection. Each minor success was met with scoffs from Blackwood. "Ah, he thinks he's doing something. How adorable!" the billionaire taunted, circling like a vulture. Yet for every derisive laugh, Darius felt a quiet satisfaction, a whisper that he was closer than anyone realized. His hands ached, sweat beaded his forehead, and the pressure weighed on him, but Darius stayed calm. This was not just about a car. It was about proving that skill, patience, and intelligence could stand against wealth and arrogance. He remembered all the times society had underestimated him, all the times his talent was dismissed because of age, race, or circumstance. This Lamborghini, broken as it was, became more than metal. It was the battleground for his dignity. Blackwood, growing impatient, raised his voice again. "Don't tell me you're actually going to fix this. You don't even have a clue, do you? Come on, show us something, old man." He leaned closer, filming Darius with his phone for his followers, narrating each movement as if it were a reality TV show. The tension in the garage was palpable. Darius could feel the collective breath of the crowd, the electric anticipation of victory or failure hanging in the air. Then, something small caught Darius's eye. a misaligned timing belt. Hidden beneath, the engine's chaos, almost invisible to anyone else. He adjusted it carefully, holding his breath as the Lamborghini shuddered slightly. A faint, promising growl escaped from the engine bay. The crowd gasped, and even Blackwood's confident smirk wavered. Looks like he's doing something. Don't get too excited, though, Blackwood said, forcing a laugh, masking the flicker of doubt crossing his face. Darius wiped his hands on a rag, leaning back to assess his work. He knew the hardest part was still ahead, the engine's ignition system. One wrong connection, one misstep, and the Lamborghini would remain a dead heap of metal. But for the first time, he saw a path forward, a chance to prove the billionaire wrong. As the cameras continued to roll, capturing every twitch of muscle and every flicker of the Lamborghini's lights, Darius's focus never wavered. He had entered a battle of skill, patience, and resolve, and he wasn't about to lose. Blackwood's mocking words faded into the background as Darius prepared for the next stage, ready to face the final impossible obstacles that stood between him and victory. Darius Freeman wiped the sweat from his brow, his eyes locked on the Lamborghini's engine. After hours of meticulous work, he had managed to get the engine to react, just a faint growl, a whisper of life. It wasn't much, but it was enough to give him hope. For the first time, he dared to think that maybe, just maybe, he could prove Gregory Blackwood wrong. Blackwood, noticing the subtle change, stepped closer, his smirk replaced with a slight frown. "Well, would you look at that? He's actually doing something," he muttered, though the edge of his voice was unmistakably bitter. He raised his phone again, narrating to his followers. "Ladies and gentlemen, don't get your hopes up. This is probably just beginner's luck. Watch closely. It'll be over in a second." Darius ignored him and focused on the ignition system. The wires were still a mess, and the electronic control unit had suffered damage that seemed insurmountable. But his trained eyes saw patterns where others saw chaos. One wrong connection and the Lamborghini would remain dead, but one correct fix could bring it roaring back to life. Carefully, he traced the circuits, replacing damaged fuses and reconnecting. Scorched wires, then a spark, literally. A small flash erupted from under the hood, accompanied by a puff of smoke. Blackwood gasped audibly, stepping back for the first time. "What? What did he just do?" he stammered, trying to mask his shock with laughter. The crowd murmured. Whispers ran through the garage, some cheering quietly, others skeptical. Social media notifications exploded with comments. "Is he really going to fix it? No way! I can't believe this!" Darius's heart raced, but he stayed calm. This was the moment he had trained for all his life. He had faced impossible machines before, but never under this kind of scrutiny, never with such stakes. His hands moved like clockwork, guided by instinct and experience, aligning the last critical connections. Finally, he reached for the key. He turned it slowly, holding his breath. The Lamborghini shuddered violently, then coughed, sputtered, and roared faintly to life. A cheer erupted from a few employees, but Blackwood's voice cut through, sharper than ever. "It's only temporary. Don't get used to it." Darius's triumph, however, was short-lived. As he adjusted the engine's throttle, a sudden loud bang echoed from the rear, followed by smoke pouring from the exhaust. The car jolted violently, stalling again. The crowd gasped in shock, and Blackwood laughed, triumphant once more. "See? Told you! You think you could cheat death? You're out of your league, old man!" Darius's chest heaved as he assessed the damage. One of the pistons had cracked under the strain, and the electronic system had triggered another failure. But he didn't despair. This was exactly the kind of challenge he thrived on. When others gave up, he kept going. He adjusted his strategy, planning his next move carefully. The stakes were higher than ever. Blackwood's arrogance and public mockery only fueled Darius's determination. Social media was buzzing. the audience divided between skeptics and believers. And Darius, sweat-streaked and focused, knew that the final victory was just one calculated move away. The garage was silent now, except for the faint hiss of smoke escaping from the Lamborghini's damaged engine. Every eye was fixed on Darius Freeman, the older black mechanic who refused to back down. Gregory Blackwood paced in front of his phone, recording every second, narrating for his followers with a mix of disbelief and arrogance. "Come on, old man. One last try. Or maybe you'll finally admit defeat in front of the world." Darius didn't respond. His hands moved with steady precision, checking the fuel lines, adjusting the ignition coil, and aligning the timing belt with exacting care. Every movement was deliberate. Every adjustment mattered. Sweat dripped from his forehead, his muscles ached, but his focus never wavered. He knew that one wrong connection could destroy the final chance of revival. The crowd leaned in, holding their breath. Some employees whispered bets under their breath while social media streams exploded with reactions. "He's going to do it! No way! This is insane! I'm rooting for him!" The tension was palpable. Blackwood, usually the master of this spectacle, now showed the first flicker of doubt in his eyes. "Careful now," Darius muttered under his breath, his voice barely audible. He had traced every circuit, replaced the burned fuses, and repaired the bent mechanical components. The engine, though damaged, responded faintly to each tweak. Finally, he placed his hands on the ignition key, feeling the weight of every expectation, his own, the crowd's, and the billionaire's mocking eyes, bearing down on him. He turned the key slowly. A spark ignited, and the Lamborghini shuddered, violently, as though it were awakening from a long, painful slumber. Blackwood's face paled slightly, his smirk faltering. The crowd gasped, leaning forward in unison. Then, with a deep, guttural roar, the Lamborghini's engine came to life, vibrating with power and fury. Smoke curled elegantly from the exhaust, and the tires spun slightly against the concrete floor. For a moment, the entire garage was frozen in awe. The impossible had happened. Darius's hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the sheer intensity of the triumph. Blackwood, attempting to save face, raised his hands in mock applause, but the disbelief in his voice betrayed him. I can't believe this," he stammered, staring at the car as it purred like a beast fully awakened. The crowd erupted into cheers, some whistling, others filming the miracle on their phones. Social media exploded. Clips of the Lamborghini coming to life went viral instantly, with viewers calling Darius a legend and mechanic of the century. Blackwood's followers were divided, some mocking, some stunned into silence. But then came the final test. Darius carefully revved the engine, testing its response. Every gear shifted smoothly, every connection held firm. The Lamborghini, once a monument to failure, now gleamed under the garage lights like a phoenix reborn. Darius smiled, a mix of relief and triumph flooding his face. Blackwood tried to regain control. "Lucky! Just lucky!" he barked. But the power dynamics had shifted. Darius had turned humiliation into victory. Sweat, grease, and determination had conquered arrogance, and the world had watched every second of it. In that moment, Darius Freeman was no longer just a mechanic. He was the embodiment of skill, resilience, and dignity. The Lamborghini roared beneath him. The impossible had been achieved, and Gregory Blackwood's laughter was replaced with stunned silence. The stage was set for the final payoff, the moment that would cement Darius's triumph forever. For a long moment, the garage was nothing but the sound of the engine, smooth, alive, and roaring with power. The very car that had mocked Darius Freeman's presence minutes ago now stood as proof of his genius. Gregory Blackwood stared blankly at the machine, the echo of his own challenge ringing in his ears. "I'll give you the Lamborghini if you can get it to run." Now, It was running. The crowd was cheering, cameras flashing, and social media notifications flooding in. But amidst the chaos, Darius simply stood still. His wrinkled hands brushed over the warm hood of the Lamborghini, not as a man claiming a prize, but as an artist admiring the return of his creation. Blackwood forced out a strained laugh, trying to appear gracious in defeat. "Well, I guess I owe you a car," he muttered, his voice thick with disbelief. Who knew an old man could pull that off? Darius looked at him quietly, his gaze firm but kind. "It's not about age, sir," he said softly, his deep voice carrying across the room. "It's about respect for the work, for the craft, and for people you think are beneath you." The billionaire's smile faltered. The audience, once amused by the humiliation, now hung on every word. Darius continued, wiping his hands on an old rag. "You see, I've fixed engines my whole life. Maybe I don't own a mansion or fly private jets, but I know one thing. Every machine, no matter how broken, deserves patience. And sometimes, people are the same way." The words hit harder than any insult could. Blackwood shifted uncomfortably, the cameras now turning toward him. The billionaire's smirk had vanished completely, replaced by a flicker of shame. "Take the keys," Blackwood said finally, holding them out stiffly. "You earned it." But Darius didn't move. The entire crowd went quiet again, expecting him to grab the keys and celebrate. Instead, he smiled faintly and shook his head. "I don't need your car," he said, stepping back. "Keep it. Maybe next time you'll think before you laugh at someone who works with his hands." The room was silent. Even the hum of the Lamborghini seemed to fade into the background. "Besides," Darius added, glancing back at the roaring machine, "I came here to fix a van, not to take what isn't mine. My reward is knowing it runs again. That's enough for me." And with that, he turned to leave. As Darius walked away, the crowd parted for him, their eyes wide with respect. A few mechanics who had laughed earlier now lowered their heads. Blackwood, left standing beside the car, stared after him, speechless for once in his life. The cameras that once captured mockery were now recording humility, respect, and something rarely seen in that garage: honor. Outside, the snow had started to fall again. Darius zipped up his old jacket and began walking down the long driveway, his breath fogging in the cold air. Behind him, the faint sound of the Lamborghini's engine still echoed, not as a symbol of wealth anymore, but as a tribute to perseverance. By the next morning, the video had gone viral. Millions watched the clip of the old mechanic who had outsmarted a billionaire. Comment sections overflowed with praise. "He's a legend! That's real skill and dignity. This needs to be a movie." Gregory Blackwood, embarrassed but changed, released a statement online. "Sometimes the richest man in the room isn't the one with the car, it's the one with the wisdom to fix it." A week later, a sleek black Lamborghini arrived quietly at a small auto shop on the edge of Chicago, Darius Freeman's shop. A handwritten note sat on the driver's seat. "For the man who made it run and taught me how to be human again. G. Blackwood." Darius smiled as he read it, shaking his head slowly. He looked up at the morning light reflecting off the hood and whispered to himself, "Guess the old man still has some miles left." And as the engine roared once more, it wasn't just a car that had come back to life. It was dignity, respect, and redemption.